welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host, Jim Saro. Long time no see, Jim.
Definitely a long time no see. I am so happy to be here. All the IU Indy fans that are listening, I can't wait to get your feedback on this second preview week episode.
Jim, you can find on Twitter at Jim Saro. We also have, of course, because this is our post-preview week episodes, is Kyle Rossi. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, Bob. How you doing? Hope you had a good week.
We're doing this early enough so you can't make any Browns jokes. I mean, we can make Browns jokes because they're the Browns, but anyway, Kyle,
it's always a good time to make Browns jokes. Come on.
It is, yeah. So I didn't realize they were doing a fire sale already, but the Browns are going to keep Brownsing. Kyle, you can find on Twitter. Actually, Kyle, you can find across all social media at KyleHCRT. You can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find links to all of our social media sites and sites where podcasts are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron, patreon.com/Horizon Roundtable. We're going to be we're going back to doing early access to the power rankings, and we've got some extras coming up this week that'll be exclusive to patrons. You don't want to miss that. Patreon.com/Horizon Roundtable. I keep missing that. You guys know where it is. If you guys listen to this, Patreon.com/Horizon Roundtable. It's there. Chances are you may actually be listening this through Patreon because we sync up all the podcast episodes. So, and then of course we're still doing our we always accept donations at horizonroundtable.com/donate, whether you guys want to or not. Looks like you're not, but we really still do encourage that. All right. So we stopped last episode with the Northern Kentucky men. Let's jump into the Northern Kentucky women. And Jeff Hans seems very intent on significantly improving from his showing last year, for sure.
I'll read another stat that I wrote about this past week, but Jeff Hans lost 42 games in 13 years at Thomas More. He lost 21 in Northern Kentucky last year. So, yeah, I think he's earned a little bit of trust. Do you think he's maybe going to get that turned around a little bit?
I believe it. I think he's definitely got the type. He's definitely got the team to do it as well. Definitely some key holdovers.
Couple really nice returning pieces. Kamora Morgan, who was probably, I don't know how the voting actually turned out, but might have been the runner-up for freshman of the year last year. Maya Meredith, really, really nice piece. You can put her in a couple different spots on the floor. But really, I think that the heart of Northern Kentucky's team this year, and Jeff Hans, he's a lifer in that area. Obviously, at Thomas More, and he was an assistant at Northern Kentucky before that. He's really just kind of beat the pavement in that immediate recruiting area and brought in a really, really nice freshman class. I'm kind of checking out Michael's preview here. He thinks a couple of them are going to start for the team this year, so I might as well name them. Jemiah Thomas out of Indianapolis, Maddie Booty, Karina Bystreet, Caroline Eaglin. Names that you're probably going to get pretty familiar with.
Sure.
I'll add in Tasha Rushton, who was an All-American at both the D2 and NAIA levels. She is the sort of kind of give me the ball type superstar that has a skill set that'll probably translate to the D1 level. So a lot of new names for Northern Kentucky this year, but you trust Jeff Hans, you trust his ability to recruit because he certainly knows the players in the area, and we'll see what their upside is.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I did, so one of the things that I found very strange, because we don't get a lot of women's basketball content for the Horizon League outside of us, by the way. But I can't remember who wrote this, and I'm still scratching my head that one of the coaches that I don't know who it was somehow thinks that Jeff Hans had some jump into a power conference job, and I'm like, and I think we talked about this a while ago elsewhere, where we were like, okay, first of all, this guy is like Northern Kentucky through and through, and I think the only job that he would even like take a look at would probably be Cincinnati. And last I checked, Katrina Merriweather isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, and maybe like a Dayton if you want to try and make them not suck at women's. But I mean, you never say never with coaches. You just don't know anymore. But if there's ever a guy that felt like a lifer to a very specific geographic area, it's Jeff Hans.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, the some of the returnees he's got coming back are, I saw it. I read enough about that. I think they're going to definitely make an impact. Maya Meredith and Abby Walterman,
Yeah,
both of them, I think they're going to
Walton, very
be.
very nice player.
Yeah,
Speaking of
absolutely.
people who used to be at IU Indy too.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't gotten into the whole Horizon on Horizon crime thing yet. Don't worry, we're going to get to it very soon. Um, Although not with Detroit Mercy, because Detroit Mercy men are actually the one team that pretty much brought back more people than anybody. Um, I think everybody's a little confused. I think we had them probably higher than anybody else. We had them picked seventh, and does not seem like that's a thing that anybody really wants to. We were the highest out of anybody. And I can't really put my fingers as to why. Um, because like I said, they have the most returnees of anybody in the Horizon League this year. And B, they brought back Orlando Lovejoy, who incidentally was preseason for all league for both us and the Horizon and the official poll. So I'm kind of scratching my head on that one as to why, and even the official poll has Detroit Mercy ninth, and I've seen them significantly lower elsewhere. I don't really, I kind of can't put my fingers on that one.
Well, I can say for myself, I picked them eighth in the league. When you look at Detroit's team last year, offensively, they were not very good. They were last in points per game, last in field goal
Yeah,
percentage, last in 3-point field goal percentage. This was the team that was not very good on offense. You look at the roster composition, 14 players. They still have 6 freshmen, 3 sophomores. So 9 of your 14 players are underclassmen. If the old saying, or the new saying in college basketball is get old and stay old, this team is get the same and stay the same. They're still relatively young. I do like some of the pieces that they brought in. I talked when we had Dan Hasty on. I mentioned Aiden
yeah,
Carter as a player I liked. Obviously, you need some organic growth from Nate Johnson and TJ Nadu to like take the next step in their
sure,
development. And then, if you're talking about coaching, and I don't know Mark Montgomery from anybody, but his track record as a head coach at Northern Illinois, which is a comparable type job to Detroit Mercy, isn't exactly like, hey, I've turned a program around and built it up. It was kind of like, I took a program that was terrible and kind of just existed with it in kind of a mid tier maybe. So I get it. I see why people aren't as high on them. This is
yeah,
hey, prove it to me, prove me wrong, or prove me right, but you got to prove it. So that's kind of what I think people are thinking about with Detroit Mercy, and in particular their youth. Is a concern for myself. And because of that, I actually only put Lovejoy on the second team because like even if you're a leading scorer in this league, if your team's not in the top of the league, I can't see you being on the first team in my mind. So
yeah. So, by the way, I said, yeah, I was still really high on them. I'm still really high on them. Not as high as I was in July. July,
you
I
don't have
had
them
them picked.
second anymore.
I didn't have them second anymore. I have them third. I swapped Detroit Mercy and Youngstown State is what I did. Um, I did that. I know I did that. But I do like I to your point, I think one of the big issues that Detroit Mercy had, not just the inexperience from last year, but the injuries really killed them last year. But kind of one of the upsides of that is that guys like Johnson and Nadu and even Ryan Callambay probably got more experience than he otherwise would have. And also just looking at their freshman class, I mean, we talk about kind of kind of being young in proportion to the rest of the Horizon League, where Wright State kind of doesn't have a lot of age. Um, Detroit Mercy has more, because not only do they have Lovejoy and Legend Jeter coming back, Jared Larry's coming back as well. They also brought in another JUCO guy, London Maiden, as well. And I do like their freshmen a lot more than probably some of the rest of the league, specifically Lance Stone, who incidentally I'm the one who picked him as our preseason player of the year. Thankfully nobody has argued with me on that one. Um, Another publication, Mid-Major Madness picked Keyshawn Foster. Yeah, I'm sorry, Keyshawn Spencer. Or
Pitcher.
Fisher. Oh my God. You know what? I've been staring at their damn graphic, which by the way, we were tagged in, by the way. Shout out to Detroit Mercy and their and the folks over at their in graphics for hooking us up on that one because there we were, Horizon Landstone Horizon Roundtable. Yeah.
Hey,
And Keyshawn Fisher.
if Keyshawn Fisher records 1,000,000,000,000 in the box score, the all
Yeah.
zero stat line, then he's Keyshawn Foster. But if he puts up some stats, then he can be Keyshawn Fisher. How about that?
Is that what I did wrong? That's what I did wrong. I also do like the fact that Tyler Spratt. Well, I don't like the fact he's not at Cleveland State anymore, but I do like Tyler Spratt too. So, who is a red shirt because he didn't play at Cleveland State last year. So he's kind of horizon on horizon crime, tangentially horizon on horizon crime. But I think as far as Detroit Mercy is concerned, I think they have compared to like a Wright State, I think they've got a better mix of the youth and experience. Plus, Monty is not shy about playing freshmen, yeah, especially if they've got some jump. And I think Fisher. I obviously think Stone's got some jump, and they definitely need a guy like Stone to run the point. Um, so I think that's going to really help them a lot. I also like. I think we'll probably see a lot of Fisher and Spratt too, because kind
Yeah,
of that's how it
I, I,
goes.
I do like Jeter and Maiden. You've got 6'8", 230, 250-pound guys that
Mhm.
and Calambe 6'9", 240. You've got some guys that can match up with teams that will play big, and you've got like to the point with Jared Larry and Nate Johnson, Lovejoy. You've got some guys that can match up with the up-tempo offensive teams in this league as well. So it's an interesting team. Honestly, for myself, I just went with lack of overall experience on the roster with the 9 underclassmen out of 14 players, and just thinking this is a team that we're probably is a year away if they can keep it together. Is probably a year away from actually really impressing people in the Horizon League. That's kind of where I was at with this team.
Well, speaking of teams that basically stayed together, except for one key piece, let's move over to the Detroit Mercy women.
Yeah, yeah.
Because because K Doctor went over to Western Michigan, and Kiefer Haffey, who was is the assistant coach, one of the assistants last year. He's the head coach. It's weird because it seems like they pretty much kept everything together.
Yeah.
Um, and it's crazy to think that because it's like we see in these here times where it's so easy for a when a coaching change happens, and we'll talk about that a little later, like next actually, where the when the coach leaves and then everybody kind of disperses, but that is not what happened with Detroit Mercy. And not only does Detroit Mercy change coaches, but they also have a really good, an extremely good, core of players coming back. Also a little bit of horizon on horizon crime going on over there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So Media Day, I actually talked to them about this very issue because it is such an anomaly in the modern day and age where, Kate Doctor left and things were going pretty well with her. And, the administration, Michaela Jackson and Myona Hooper were the 2 players they had at Media Day. But basically, administration just went to them, hey, what do you want us to do? Kiefer applied for the job and like, hey, we want to just keep this
My
thing
understanding,
rolling.
he was lobbying hard for that job, and they were like, "Yep, sure, there you go." Enjoy.
Yeah.
But no, actually, it's funny because we looked at that. We look at kind of the jump from the promotion internal promotions thing. We saw that last year with both Wright State and Youngstown State on the men's side, and I guess it stands to reason that Detroit Mercy did the same exact thing here.
I just think the amount of buy-in that they were able to get from the roster, as part of their decision to make that move is just, and Happy would have been okay either way. He probably would have gone to Western Michigan if he hadn't gotten the Detroit Mercy job. But just having that buy-in from everybody, and we're just going to keep this thing rolling for one more year and see what happens. And I think it is. I mean, I rated Detroit Mercy pretty highly personally, just because they have that continuity, they have that veteran leadership, but at the same time, they were still a 500 team last year. So you return everyone from a 500 team. What do you get? Right.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, and you hope that they can find some sort of, organic improvement from within their roster. And I do think you mentioned the Horizon on Horizon crime. I do think the two Northern Kentucky players, they got Davis and Basie. I think Basie's big time. She had this huge game against Cleveland State 2 years ago. She just never been able to stay healthy. But I think if Davis can, roughly approximate Amaya O'Brien, who graduated, is actually an assistant coach now, but if she can approximate that a little bit, and if you can get something out of Basie, you could get a full season out of Katie Burton. There's room for growth there, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and by the way, there's no shortage of McQueens on the Detroit Mercy roster.
Well, that's about the strongest endorsement you can get. And, Green Bay's obviously got quite a few sister pairs either on the roster or committed as well. But, Aaliyah McQueen, somebody who's bounced to, 4 different schools in her college career, finally found one she likes enough to say to her sister, hey, you should come join me over here. So, yeah.
Hey, that works. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Here comes my favorite part of the podcast, talking about Cleveland State men's basketball. And boy, do I got a lot to talk about on this one. Because we got a new head coach in Rob Summers, who obviously Cleveland State fans should know who is, obviously. And an entirely new roster, and our first instance on the men's side of some actual Horizon on Horizon crime, Jim, in Foster Wonders.
Foster is a all-around grade A human being, and I'm happy that he is going to play out one more year in the Horizon League, and I'm hoping that he has a really big year, because he's the kind of guy that when you meet him and talk to him, you're rooting for him. You're definitely not the kind of guy that you're rooting against.
Well, the funny part that the one thing I found interesting is, I think when we talked to Rob Summers during our live YouTube show, is that Foster Wonders is one of the guys that Cleveland State initially recruited when Summers was still an assistant at CSU, and he eventually went to SIU instead. And clearly the opportunity presented itself for this year for him to transfer, and he took it. And I think with what Rob Summers wants to do with the Cleveland State roster this year, with this Cleveland State team, is probably a 180 from what we're used to for the last 3 years from Danielle Robinson. Because in the Danielle Robinson era, as we know, Jim, defense oriented, no lead is safe for an opponent when Cleveland State clamps down on defense. This year is going to be a little different. And based on all the players that they have brought in, it's going to be definitely offense oriented, big time.
Yeah, when I look at that, that is actually a cause for concern in my own personal picking of Cleveland State. And Bob, you said this is the part of the podcast you look forward to. Is actually the part of the podcast I was fearing, because as you may recall, I picked them 11th in this league, and so
you did. I know this.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that at the end of the second episode of Preview Week is where the new co-host comes in for the third week, because I've been fired because of my Cleveland State pick. But, I have to live with what I believe is in my heart, and I'm on with 2 Cleveland State guys, so I'm going to take my chances here. But they're definitely going to play offense and up-tempo offense. But when I was looking at things, guys that you can point to that you like, obviously, Nasea is, a player that everybody's expecting big things from.
Yeah.
Nessa, excuse me, I said that wrong. Josiah Harris is a player with a little bit of a proven track record, and the right kind of size and fit for what they need. But there's a lot of question marks around the rest of the roster. There's pieces that I like. I personally like Jaden Lipscomb. I highlighted Priest Ryan as somebody that maybe could be a a player in the Horizon League. Foster has made shots in this league, but he's also gone through long stretches where he hasn't made shots. Chevalier and Emery is a guy that's kind of a bucket getter, but if he's playing point guard at his size, maybe he's not always looking for the pass. So it'll be just it's an interesting mix of
It's
guys.
ironic. That's it. I'm glad you brought up Ice Emery because, like, apparently the only person allowed to call him Chevalier is Rob Summers. But
So when
how
he,
cool is that guy? Like, not only is he not, the guy who has the cool nickname has an even cooler real name. Come on, how many people do you know named Chevalier?
apparently, I think there's two. I think his dad might be a Chevalier, if I remember right. I can't remember
See,
for
there
sure,
you go. But
at the end of the day, with Coach Summers, like he he struck me on the YouTube preview as like a leader of men, like the kind of guy that if you're a
yeah,
parent and somebody's recruiting you, you're gonna be like, I like this guy. I trust this guy with my kid. But he put this team together completely on the fly, built from ground zero in
yeah.
a short period of time. I'm not sure he's going to have everything he needs in his first year. And then I know his only other head coaching experience was probably at one of the worst jobs in Division Two.
Yeah.
But they were 11-55 in the MEC. It took till the third year for him to kind of get out of the bottom of the league and have a 7-15
then
year
like years later, that entire institution got
school.
Thanos snapped.
Yeah,
So
yeah, didn't exist. It never happened. I guess that's a question for the two of you. If you're a head coach at a program that's so bad that the school goes out of business, can you remove that record from your resume like it never happened?
I mean, theoretically, yeah. I mean,
Who's going to argue with you?
exactly. We can, you make that stuff up. It's not on, it's not on Division One team. It's not on sportsreference.com. So,
Go,
hey,
go the other
Yep.
way, like I do, and just put a bunch of companies that don't exist on your resume, and they can't verify anything.
There you go.
exactly.
Feel it. For the rest of the season now, whenever I think of that experience at Urbana, I'm gonna have Shaggy in my head, and it'll be like it wasn't me.
Now, Rob, yeah, you mentioned it already, Jim, but yeah, Rob Summers is a straight up good dude, man. I love just kind of being in any event where he is, and he'll come up to me, big handshake. Hey, how you doing? I'm like, it's a little bit like the Sonny Wicks thing I mentioned last week. I can't do anything for you, man. We have a different guy writing about the men's team, but he's just such a nice guy, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, he's from the Dennis Gates coaching tree. Of course he is. So, it's funny. It's funny going back to Ice Emery, Jim, because in an alternate timeline, He'd be playing for Green Bay, because he was committed to Sonny before, obviously, Sonny went to Wyoming. So
Yeah,
theoretically, in an alternate
as I say,
timeline, yeah,
he was. Interesting thing people may not realize is he was actually at the press conference for Doug Gottlieb. There was like 4 or 5 people there, and he was at that time. He was only committed. He was not. He had not played for Green Bay, but he was there because he's from the Appleton area, which
yeah.
is 45 minutes southwest of Green Bay. And I think that they're, from what I understand, that door wasn't closed for leaving when he was in the portal this year. Maybe there was a little bit of talk about getting it together. But at the end of the day, this is a good fit for Emery, because Emery is a bucket getter, and playing an up-tempo offense is probably going to be a good fit for him. So the two Wisconsin kids that they have on the roster have a really nice opportunity to have a big season, and you just have a lot of other guys that you're like, they might be able to, step into a bigger role and put up numbers, but there's just nobody that you look at and go, day number one, like, I know for sure. Like, had the guy from George Washington. Was it George Washington or George Mason for
George Washington with Diane Nessa,
George
yeah.
Washington? Yeah, had he not had that big summer tournament in FIBA, I don't know that he's getting as much pub, coming into the season. So there's just
I
like,
blame myself on that one. I watched way too much of that tournament, man. But he was
You didn't-
just next level.
no,
in
you
that
didn't
whole
watch
thing.
enough. You need to watch more. This is your team. This is your program. You got to be loud and proud. And if this is your
This is
guy,
true.
then
You should.
there's not enough. The fact that you're not, personally outside of Josiah Harris's house and watching his practices at night, because that's a guy that if he's healthy and able to go, he's probably going to be a difference maker in the Horizon League.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And he was at Akron last year. Well, he was supposed to be kind of a pretty, significant piece for Akron last year, and then he got hurt. So that, so this is this is going to be kind of that year for him to kind of make up for lost time, really. So, I mean, that's definitely something for Joe. That's definitely a thing to look for Josiah Harris for sure. But yeah, I mean, and again, and I gotta mention this too because we're kind of in that especially with both on the men's side and the women's side, that kind of picking 3 through 8 and two through 8 has kind of been a crapshoot. So any one of these, I feel like any one of these teams from like second place to ninth place, and even are just gonna be, it's just a bag of squirrels. It just is. I accept that, and we'll be over here in March saying, yeah, we got this wrong, and this wrong."
Well, in March, I'll hope to happily be wrong on my Cleveland State pick. Like I said, I think this is a good group of guys and a good coaching staff. I just think it's too much too soon for this particular year. But hopefully, I'm wrong. Because it's the kind of team that there's some guys that I could definitely root for on this one.
It's funny, Jim, you mentioned press conference oddities. It kind of reminded me how Oakland's whole team was at Keisha Newell's press conference. And obviously, a lot of them ended up transferring out pretty quickly after that, including May Skrupski. And somebody, I think it was Giovanni, had like a YouTube interview with her. Hey, what do you think about the new coach? Like, no, I don't really care about the new coach. I'm going to Green Bay.
Oh, by the way, I'm glad you brought Giovanni Moceri because I'm actually going to be on his. I'm going to be on his on the Jomo show this week, so I get to do that. So
That's a
you've
professional
all been
segue right there,
collectively
Bob.
been warned. You all been warned. All right, so let's talk about the Youngstown State women. Definitely some familiar faces on that squad. By the way, shout out to John Ostapowitz for filling in to do that preview. By the way, we still need a Youngstown State writer. Just like they
Oh,
disappear off our play.
and they're lucky. I talked to them at media day as well, and I actually got into this a little bit. Youngstown State is fortunate that they actually do get covered by their local people, and they do a great job of it.
Oh,
But
they really
yeah,
do.
they're such great people down there.
That's why
Pretty much all of
Cleveland.
them.
That's why anytime Cleveland State pops up and you just happen to be there, Kyle, he's like, "Hey, it's Kyle from the Horizon Roundtable." Literally the only people who give a shit about us.
And John, their SID, always goes above and beyond for everybody. Coach
Yeah.
Jackson's always been fantastic to me. So yeah, we get somebody to cover them, man. They're such nice people. They deserve it.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, I think year two of Melissa Jackson. I think they definitely got some jump there for sure.
Well, and speaking of Melissa Jackson, I think it was Neil she gave this quote to. I'm going to feed the post until they stop it. And you know what? I'm not sure that anybody will stop it. Between you got, the returning Horizon League freshman of the year, Sophia Gregory. You have Sarah Baker, who could have been the freshman of the year if she hadn't gotten hurt. She won like 3 Freshman of the Week awards. You have Ashlyn Van Tassel, who was hurt all last year, but she was a highly rated recruit. And those are 3 kind of classic 5s. You can maybe slide Baker over to the 4. Then you bring in Pauline Hernandez from Cleveland State. She was kind of buried on the depth chart for the Vikings. Never really got much of a chance for them. And then obviously Faith Birch from the year before. She's again more of a 4. But you got 5 really good players on that front line there that they're just going to kind of mash people to death. And brought in a really, really nice experienced guard in Casey Santoro to kind of get the ball to them, play the defense, maybe hit an occasional 3 to back them off a little bit. Yeah, Santoro's an interesting story just because she was at Kent State for, I think, 3 years playing against Melissa Jackson's Akron teams.
True.
And that's one of those things you go into one of those modern realities, you go into the portal, 2, 3 times, and you have coaches that recruit you every single time and you keep saying no to them. And Jackson actually asked this, didn't recruit Santoro out of high school, but it was sort of just that playing in that Akron-Kent State rivalry where she got some familiarity. And then Santoro obviously went to FGCU for a couple of years, played for Carl Smesko there. So yeah, she's going to be a really nice fit for their young guards as well.
Yeah, but did you get to recycle your preseason freshman of the year pick this year?
I did. It was actually, I guess I could share this now. It was actually Melissa Jackson's idea. I'm like, I kind of complained to her. I'm like, I hit it pretty well with Sarah Baker last year, and I can't believe I have to do this again. She's like, well, you can pick Sarah Baker again. I'm like, she's, she redshirted. I'm like, you know what? And then And then her dad actually asked me, Sarah Baker's dad is like, is she eligible for him? Like, yeah, they pick red shirts for these freshman awards all the time. They picked two on the freshman
This
team
is
last year.
true. This is very true. This is very true. Like, by the way, this is how you know we're the only people who do this when we got players' parents asking us. This has been kind of a habit for us, especially on the women's side.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of them, I think most of them like me. A couple don't. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
so
that'll happen. You
it
say enough
happens.
words, somebody
It's
will be mad
unavoidable.
at something you said at some point.
It doesn't matter. All right, so we got Purdue Fort Wayne, the men. Their entire backcourt is gone, with the exception of Corey Hadnot, was the first guy off the bench. So this is Corey Hadnot's team now. Um, and looks like John Kaufman kind of hit the portal hard this year. He kind of had to. He didn't really have much of a choice, including some more Horizon on Horizon crime. Darius Duffy is heading over to the Mastodon. So I am looking at but I'm looking specifically at the backcourt for Purdue Fort Wayne and just kind of seeing where they can make up for man a really probably one of the best backcourts in the conference last year. And I'm looking at this team and think and I don't know if had not and DeAndre Craig and McKaylee Stevenson and that group I feel like they can kind of get close to replicating the productivity of the backcourt last year. I don't know. I honestly do not know specifically if it's gonna 100% translate, but I guess we'll give it. We'll see soon enough.
With Fort Wayne, obviously you think about offense. To your point, Bob, the backcourt is
Yeah.
what carried them in the past. I have DeAndre Craig as an all conference player. I had him on the third team. I
Hmm.
had Fort Wayne as my seventh pick in the league. And when I think about Fort Wayne, like the turns me is the defense, and you lost Cuthrell and Mulder, who were very productive, like big. I'm and Darius Stuff wasn't like granted he was phase of Darius like plus you have their freshman or true freshman. This
Yeah.
is a team with no a team historically hasn't played great defense, and I'm
Hmm.
not sure who's going to rebound. People talk about Max Nelson a little bit. I see him in previews. He had 2 rebounds in 23 minutes per game.
Max Nelson is more.
That's
Yeah.
one
And you did. I'm glad you
for
mentioned
a
him because
guy
he's
who's
coming
6'8".
back. Yeah. He's more of a stretch four. He spends most of his time on the perimeter as opposed to up front. Um and by the way, we to your point, we actually we had DeAndre Craig as our second team, and we had Darius Duffy on our third team. He was our last third team guy. So I like that they were able to bring in a guy like Duffy. They needed to bring in a guy like Duffy, especially, you know, given the fact that they lost Eric Mulder. So they needed to get that. They needed to get
Yeah,
somebody back like that.
yeah, but this is a guy who's averaging 3 and 2 at Milwaukee. It's like he's going to need to double his minutes and then increase his productivity in those normal Horizon League stats. I
Yeah,
think big ask, quite frankly. And schedule wise, coming into the non-conference, like this is a team that's going to have probably some really crappy looking metrics because they've got 5 bye games, not the one game
yeah.
that don't count. So, like, their ratings are not going to be looking good. So it's going to be interesting to see how a young team stays together after a tough non-conference and a team that, quite frankly, is built for one side of the ball and not for all phases of the game. So I'm not
All
saying
right.
I
So
don't
there's
think
actually
Fort Wayne will
one
be
player
great,
that I'm,
but I'm
yeah.
not pumped.
So there's one player I've been waiting to see for years because John Coppin's been talking about him for like 3 years now, and that's D'Angelo Elze. Like I've been waiting for this guy because the 6'9" guy from the Bahamas. I've been waiting for this guy. Hopefully, we actually see a lot more of him this year than we did in years past. Kind of need him this year, actually, big time.
Was he a junior college guy from like Triton or something like that a couple years
I
ago?
don't remember where he's
With
from. He's been on this roster for a million years, so I've absolutely, I mean,
yeah,
I feel like we really need to see him because he was we didn't see a lot of him last year, obviously because of Cultural and Eric Mulder. The year before he was hurt, and then yeah, it's he's been around for a while, so yeah, I need to see him. I need to see a lot more of him.
yeah. I'm looking at his stats, and he played a lot of games last, just not minutes.
Yeah,
And interesting, kind of the stats, very interesting for him. He had two three-pointers last year, made both of them, and he shot 72% in the paint. So maybe that's the prize guy. The guy has points, two rebounds, but two
mhm.
rebounds in 8 minutes. So there's being like a stat. I was in 8 minutes. That's the high you can exit that out over 24 minutes talking about sounds a game. Maybe there's a chance, but man, I just too many unknowns for this team for me. But again, it's probably a team that Green Bay will go down to Fort Wayne, play in the Coliseum, and get their doors blown off, and then I'll probably have people be, hey, I thought you didn't have these guys, and so. But I like the Kyle approach. If you're not saying enough things that people hate you once in a while, then you're not doing it right.
Very true indeed. And we actually have Purdue Fort Wayne a little lower than well, no, wait, no, we don't. We have Purdue Fort Wayne and the official. We have
They were
this.
fifth in the same
Yeah, we have them in the same.
for both.
So if they underperform or overperform, then we're all collectively wrong. Um, So next up is the Robert Morris women, and I know we did the preview, but Kyle, you just did a story on them. You just did a story on them this weekend, talking to them because you had an opportunity to talk to Chandler McCabe, during media day,
Yeah,
and
it was
and
absolutely fascinating. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, we because I'm looking at them and I want to see where did the official poll? We had them place fourth, which is kind of where they ended up last year. And the official poll has them second. So there's a lot of upside there for them. It sounds like not just between from us, but from you know other folks.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to them because I was absolutely fascinated by the fact that you have Chandler McCabe, who's from Orlando originally, played her college ball at Providence, but then kind of began her coaching career. She's been at Bethune Cookman and George Mason, and went back to her hometown of Central Florida for a year. Has absolutely no connection to Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or anything like that. Yet in her second year, has substantially remade this roster that was always just chock full of international players, and it's now they have seven Pittsburgh area kids on the team. So I kind of wanted to dive into that a little bit and figure out how that comes about because we talked about Jeff Hands a little bit. He's a lifer in that certain area and knows the area, but Chandler McCabe, she became a Yinzer awfully quickly, so I kind of wanted to dig into that. So yeah, but two of her star attractions this year are a couple of Pittsburgh kids and Bailey Coons and Aislinn Malcolm. Kind of took opposite tracks to get to Robert Morris in the first place. Malcolm's a former top 100 recruit, went to Pitt, started every game for them 2 years ago. Kind of fell out of favor a little bit last year and left the program mid-season, but she's a big-time scorer that, three-level scorer, as they say, and kind of I don't know if this is off the record or not. Hopefully, I'm not betraying any confidences, but they kind of unprompted said this is the player that's going to tear up Cleveland State's zone. So there's a lot to live up to there. Bailey Coons, started her career at Mercyhurst when they were a Division II program and kind of just graduated up to D1 with them and was an All NAC first teamer last year. Just an absolute workhorse, averaged like 20 points and 7 rebounds or something like that. She was 35th in the country in usage rate, something like that. So, those are the kind of two players that Robert Morris really hasn't had somebody of that sort of tier where it's just give me the ball, let me go to work. They've always been a very defense first team that's spread the wealth around a lot. And they kind of have these maybe two of the top 10 players in the entire conference now.
Yeah, that's true. And then Yeah, and don't forget Noah Gavon too, because
Oh yeah, well
we
yeah, I
had
mean yeah, she's back. So obviously they're returning leading scorer, very smart perimeter player, good length, defends well. So yeah, they have a couple, and then Jada Lee's another one I'll mention. She was the team assist leader last year, so they have a couple good return pieces. Turned over a lot, but I think improved their team substantially from a team that was a very big surprise in the conference last year and going to Indianapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Oakland coming up. We got the Oakland men. Um, we picked them fourth. The league picked them second. Buru must be like, I mean, we picked Buru obviously as our player of the year, and so did they. Um, Apparently that makes a big difference.
Yeah, Buru is one of those guys that when I was talking before about IU Indy, there's the kind of guy in the Horizon League that is going to be able to guard on guards, and he's going to mop up in the paint, and just a
Oh
tough
yeah.
guy to stop. I do have him as a first teamer, of course. I mean, it's hard to ignore the returning production. I had Oakland fourth. A couple of things when I was looking at the Oakland roster. So one thing I know everybody loves Coach Campy, and so this is going to be like treasonous for me to say, but in the last 6 years, Oakland has finished in Horizon League play sixth, fifth, first, and sixth. So even though I love this roster, I actually couldn't pick them higher than fourth because like the trend line for their program is to figure out how to be good in March, not necessarily how to be great from December through February. And
Yeah.
so I do like what they have. I do think we'll be seeing them in Indianapolis. I do think if you're match up against Coach Campy in the Horizon League tournament, you've got a lot of work to do, as we've seen.
Yeah.
He is the kryptonite to Bart Lundy, from what I can tell. Right now,
Yeah.
and but at the end of the day, the roster is stacked. They have 9 of their 14 players are juniors or seniors. So, get old, stay old. They're doing a great job with that. They have, from what I have also heard, one of the more expensive rosters in the league. So they went out and got some guys that, have produced or are good fits for them. Like you look at, and I might be saying this name wrong, but Michael Hauga or
Michael Hoge.
Haug,
Michael Hoge.
Hoge. There's an example of a guy that you look at what um, who's the guy that went to Arizona State this past from Kansas City? Who's the other big guy they had last year besides Buru?
That would have been Al Mukeba.
Alan McKipp, thank you. That's a guy that you could easily pinpoint and say stepping right into that role, and I
Yeah.
like that. I did pick, in addition to Buru, I took a little leap of faith here on Brody Robinson as an all-conference player.
Uh-huh.
Oakland's best teams have had dominant point guards, and that's a guy that's gonna, should be able to dish the ball and get some easy buckets for players on Oakland's team. So we'll see what happens here, but a very experienced team. It's hard to look at their roster and say there's a hole because they've got 6'10" guys, they've got 6'8" guys, they've got
Yeah.
big wings. I mean, probably the only thing they don't have is decent size at the point guard with Brody, and I think Coy Thurman's going to play some point guard for them. He's
Yeah.
only 6'1", but everywhere else you could look at and say they've got all the pieces that you would expect a top team to have.
I'm not
But this is a
entirely,
team,
and I'm not
yeah.
entirely concerned about the size of the point guard because, I mean, hello, Kay Felder, how tall was he? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
they, I
totally.
that's
I'm not saying it's an issue. I'm just saying it's like this is a team that looks like all their other teams, but then all the other teams were sixth, fifth, first, and sixth in the last 6 years.
that's
So
true.
that's
I think one of
that's
the
where I'm
things
at.
that, to your point, I think, and by the way, I actually had them fifth. I picked them fifth myself. I think the addition of Brody Robinson having an actual point, having a point guard that it sounds like Oakland has been this guy. They've been pursuing this guy for a while. Um, he obviously did not go to Oakland last year, but he did come to Oakland this year. And I think this is the kind of point guard that Campy loves. And so I think the expectation is him running the point is going to be pretty high for him to fill in that role that Campy hasn't necessarily had over the last couple of years. And to your point, I think specifically up front, where there hasn't been as much size. I think the addition of some of these guys that got coming in, I think it's going to do them a world of good. Does it translate to second place? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. So All right. So we got to talk about the Purdue Fort Wayne women, who did outstanding last year. Best, probably the best I've ever seen them in the Horizon League, even though they've only been in the Horizon League for like
I think by most
five.
metrics, it was the best season they've had in Division One. Period.
Yeah. And this is a Purdue Fort Wayne team that needed to find a lot of pieces because all of them are not there anymore.
I think it says a
Graduated and all
lot
that
of
stuff.
says a lot about that team that they had, though. That like I think pretty much everyone's an assistant coach
Yeah,
now.
no,
You have
pretty, yeah,
Amelia
basically they all
Bromachenko,
graduated and they're now assistants everywhere.
yeah, Amelia Bromachenko left in Northern Iowa. Audra Emerson's with Kate Octor, Western Michigan, and then you have uh, what's her face, Lauren Ross stayed home at Purdue Fort Wayne there.
Gotta remember her. She's actually on the Purdue Fort Wayne staff.
Yeah,
So this year is gonna be for this year is definitely going to be kind of a re. It's funny we consider it a rebuilding year for Maria Marcasano. We got him picked to finish third.
yeah. I think and we'll talk about this with Cleveland State as well. It's certain coaches when you've achieved a level of success, they've earned that kind of trust where
Yeah,
okay, they turned over their whole roster, but they're still going to be okay, and you kind of just
yeah.
trust it a little bit, and it'll be interesting. I don't know that I think I have them quite as highly as everybody else does because they have Jordan Reed back, who was phenomenal, sixth player of the year last year, just ridiculous athlete. Honestly, she was kind of famous because she won a state championship as a football player in high school. She was a kicker. Just and it'll be kind of interesting because she'll be expected to carry a lot more of the load this year, and you
Yeah.
wonder if that's going to be the same type of effect as just having this kind of change up that you can bring in off the bench. So that's always kind of the question with a player like that. But they did bring in a couple of big time NAI All Americans, and Reed herself was a former NIL All American, so you kind of trust that coaching staff as far as knowing what they're doing there. You have Elena Nelson and Lauren Lee are going to be two of their star players. Nelson's sort of a bigger body. I think she averaged 20 and 10 in NAIA, so she's going to be. They think she's a big time player, and I'm inclined to trust them at this point.
I would too. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, and I think I guess the challenge is going to be like a lot of these teams is to get kind of kind of get that mix of the new faces and the core pieces together. But given what Maria Marcasano has done over the years, I think we're definitely giving her the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of giving the benefit of the doubt, we got the Youngstown State men coming here. And yeah, I wrote this preview mostly because well, I thought somebody else was going to. I guess that didn't happen. So I wrote it. Um it's funny, and we've seen this over the years, for starting with Jared Calhoun and going to moving on to Ethan Faulkner, where it's almost it's not an entire rebuild every year. There's always like one or two key pieces that are coming back, and they don't even rebuild. They just reload. And it looks like that's exactly what they did this year. But this year, I mean, they got a guy like Chris Carroll, who was a preseason first teamer for both us and the official poll, and also Jason Nelson. Not to mention the fact they got Emmanuel Zorgval coming off the redshirt year. So nice to lose nice to lose a 7-footer and get another 7-footer coming back. Now, as I know we had talked to Rob Schmidt about this a little bit last episode. Last episodes, because there was an episode before this. But that you're not the expectation is that he's not going to replicate Gabe Dines' production, stat by stat, but it's still going to be a good. He's still Zorgval is still going to be a good piece to have, and then you add those guys in, and then you add guys like Vlad Celeridze and Bryson Dawkins, two guys whose names have jumped two names that a bunch of people, including us, have are very high on, and not just them, but some of the other guys coming in are definitely going to be it's gonna be like we're not missing anything. Probably why we haven't tied for second in the conference.
Yeah, it's interesting. The official poll has them third,
Yeah.
and so when I look at Youngstown State, though, I'm glad you didn't ask me to write the preview because I picked them first, so I didn't want the extra work. But I would have been the perfect guy for that because I'm all about this Youngstown State team. I have three players represented in the top 15 players of the league. I had Bryson
Yeah.
Dawkins as my player of the year. I have Vlad as a first teamer, and I actually have Chris Carroll. As much as I like the returning stats, 9-5, and he's been there. I see those other guys are more dynamic than he will be, and for the positions that they play, I think it'll be easier for those guys to accumulate enough stats to be listed as first team type players. But I did have Chris Carroll as a second teamer. When you look at what works for Youngstown State with their roster, what works is that they are ahead of the curve in raising money and finding talented players. Like I actually look at a guy like Rich Rolfe, who's coming from Charlotte, and he was a 4-3 guy, 6'7". Like that's a guy that probably could be potentially an all conference type player, except he's got to go behind a guy like Vlad Salarizzi, who's also 6'7" as a stretch four and averaged 10-8 previously. So like I just think they have some depth. They have some experience on their team. We know the style of play that they play, works. There's really no gaping holes. This isn't a team that you go, oh, they only play offense or they only play defense. This is a team that gets after it on, both sides of the ball. Last year, they were fourth in horizon scoring and they were middle of the pack. In terms of they weren't the best defensive team, but they were definitely a middle of the pack defensive team. So I just like this team. I like what they have going. They've got momentum and, for a little shout out for Jimmy Lemke. He's been waiting his whole adult life for them to finally get their shit together, and they definitely have it. So this is the team I think we're going to be seeing in Indianapolis.
I look forward to it.
Come March.
Yeah. So. Well, one of the things too that in this entire kind of renaissance of Youngstown State basketball is they're not afraid to kind of look beyond Division One and find some guys. I mean, last year Ty Harper was a key piece. This year they're bringing in Cam Pollock, who spent most of his time in Division Two, and then Tyler Robinette. From the NAIA, from the College of Idaho. And Robinette was actually Robinette was at College of Idaho forever and was a part of not one, but two national championship teams there. So there's definitely some pieces. I don't know. I think last year I kind of overestimated what I wanted out of Ty Harper last year. I kind of tempered my expectations on Pollock and Robinette, but, I might be, I might be selling them short too.
I mean, with Robinette's a good example, 6'8", 215. But then you have Rolf 6'7", 210. You have Vlad, who's 6'7", 230. Like, there's just a plethora of guys that, like, you could kind of look at and say, okay, Vlad's not going to play 40 minutes a game. So the guy who comes in, there doesn't seem like there's going to be a drop off for this team from the starting players to the next three or four guys off the bench. This looks like a really deep team. And to your point, it's going to be with some guys maybe that we haven't heard of, or you're like, other than it's in Idaho, where is the College of Idaho and who do they play against? But the point is, like, they've got some pieces that have a little bit of a track record and aren't going to be needed for 32 minutes a game. Tyler Robinette's probably going to be needed for 15 minutes a game, and that's probably going to be perfect for him.
Absolutely. And they have so many different pieces that, if you're playing 15 minutes a game for this squad, you're doing pretty good. Because playing time is going to be at a premium at Youngstown State this year. So Youngstown State fans and Purdue Fort Wayne fans, I guess you don't have to listen to the next episode. So, all right, I guess we're doing one more of these. So next episode, we're going to talk about the top two teams on both sides. You guys really need to listen to this because you clearly didn't read the previews that we dropped on Friday for them. So you're going to have to listen to the entire next episode, whether you wanted to or not. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the other stuff too, some of the additional stuff. But until then, horizonroundtable.com, that's where you can pull up all of our podcast episodes and articles, like Preview Week articles. They're there. Read them already. You can pull us up wherever podcasts are available. You can pull us up on your Amazon or Google devices. So, hit stop, go to the next one. It's dropping. Until then, thank you all for listening.